to our viewers to European Utility Week. With me, I'm joined by Miguel and Stefan from SAP. Welcome, gentlemen. Let's dive straight into the discussion around disruptive business models. This seems to be the new norm and something that's been discussed at EUW quite a lot. Miguel, could you elaborate on this for us?
Yeah. Well, this is definitely one of the key questions that has been asked and discussed during the entire conference, right? So I've been speaking with analysts, I've attended also some keynotes presentations where this topic has been definitely in focus. And obviously there are different perspectives that I have seen, and I guess I can follow several of them, right? So one is saying that definitely in particular the new generation technologies will considerably disrupt that business in the next 4 years. So this is something that we have heard already. We have also seen one very interesting keynote explaining exactly the level of disruption that is expected in relation to the level of, let's say, concentration of power generation that we have assisted, right? And that presentation highlighted indeed that some level of disruption is expected, in particular for the next 20 years for sure, but also looking a bit at the past, in the last 20 years, the last 10 years, I'm sorry, despite some disruption, that has been not as massive as some might have expected. I think in the end, the utilities will definitely be disrupted in a few ways for sure, but those ways will definitely be mitigated by the regulatory models that they have in place. And regulation is then, again, this year has been a central topic that has been discussed. And there, of course, what we see is that despite everyone is asking for faster regulation, to enable new business models, and then to make it available or possible that this level of disruption that everyone is talking about, we do also see indeed that the regulators are typically slow, they take some time. There is also some level of transparency that is not being achieved, and definitely that will compromise some of the possible disruption that we would see in the entire business.
Absolutely. Stefan, I'm not sure if you'd like to maybe comment on that.
Yeah, I mean, disruption is for sure a trend which we see across the world for utilities happening out there. And is often driven by the market entrance of other players into the utilities space, offering possibilities for consumers to generate their own electricity without having to have a utility to back this up most of the time, but sometimes they need that. So utilities trying now by themselves, okay, how can I also survive and thrive in this kind of market? So not just selling electrons alone, but maybe selling solar panel contracts to customers as an additional service out there to go away from the pure energy commodity. Or distribution companies who are not really in the retail space open up e-commerce stores to offer to their customers additional services and products around energy, because consumers have a need for that, and utilities starting to fill that, so that they're changing their own model because it's changed from the outside.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because my next question was around the prosumer or consumer, and how much of an influence they are having on this disruptive model, and of course how the energy market is moving.
Absolutely. And while let's define prosumer first. So prosumer is a consumer who actually also at times anyway can produce energy. So now we have a two-way street. Before it was really just from the utility, from the retailer or the DSO down to the consumer. Now the consumer actually sends energy back. That is for one a problem for the grid, it has to be managed in there, but it's now another business relationship the utilities can have with this consumer. And it's not just there's a solar panel which produces maybe 3-4 hours a day energy, which could be used at other places too. But beyond the solar panel, it could be a battery storage. It could be an electric vehicle. So soon we will see vehicle to grid scenarios. We have already vehicle to the house scenario, which again takes away the consumer from the revenue stream of the utility because they're using the energy from the car in there. So it is a new dimension of a business relationship which the utility has to account for just to deal with the fact that it exists. It's not a question whether it happens, it's just a question how fast it is spreading in there. And then how to actually make a profit in this scenario, how to do business with this consumer who has now many more possibilities, has a larger energy wallet which the utility can tap into if they are open to address these additional energy services in there.
very interesting insights you have there, and I think the fact that you touched on, the new revenue models and how to capitalize on these opportunities. Anything you'd like to add there, Miguel?
No, I mean, the opportunity is there, right? And I think many utilities are currently looking at that, and what we see is that they are complementing their offers, right, with multiple services, with self-generation implementation in these installations, and all that creates a much broad type of offering that utilities are bringing to the consumers, because obviously they are having a completely different role into that market.
Well, I tell you, it's certainly an interesting space to watch, and I think one of the words that we keep hearing is the D word, which is digitalization. And I would just like to hear from SAP, what does that mean to you and to the market?
Well, that is a very broad topic,
yes.
indeed, right? So, and obviously it's also a journey, right? And that journey is something that, of course, many utilities started. I think that is very important to highlight that many utilities have appointed chief digital officers, right, to drive that digital transformation, and that has become a central aspect in the strategy of all the utilities in the recent years. So that is a very important aspect. Then the other aspect, I guess, is definitely that utilities are very much focused on having a different type of culture in the company to drive that type of transformation and that journey. And then, of course, to say something very obvious, everything is about the data, right? But then what SAP had to say there is definitely that it's not only about the data, it's really about bringing the data into a particular context, right? The context that people understand, in particular semantic domains that have been nurtured and developed over the years by utilities, and obviously allowing that the business conclusions can be taken into the context of that company. So that is a fundamental aspect. And what SAP brings here, right, exactly to address that topic, is the topic of the intelligent enterprise offering, enabling utilities to become intelligent enterprises. Take advantage of the data, putting all that data into the context of the business processes, and then leveraging a set of intelligent technologies that will allow companies to automate, right, and do the business processes in a much more accurate way than before. And then, of course, they will be able to release their talent and their capacity to come up with those new business models, with new business approaches, finding out new correlations of fundamental business variables that will allow them to drive the business in a much precise and better way for the future. So this is, I would say, a part of the key message that we are bringing here for the conference.
I must say, I've heard a lot more about developing these correlations and, of course, using this data for intelligent strategy design. I don't know, Stefan, if you'd like to add anything to that?
Sure. I mean, it's certainly important to understand that digitalization is not just automation of processes. We have done this for many, many years already. We need to take this to the next level to bring intelligence to the processes. Consumers expecting much better treatment these days than it was even less than 5 years ago. And the business relationship, as we just discussed, becomes more complex. So just as this small aspect, just the consumer leaving the asset side for the time being out there, is getting more complicated for the utility to deal with. And the wrong solution would be trying to have plenty of agents to worry about the customer. They would not have the time, they would not have the means, and nobody would be able to pay for all of these services. So with the technology which we have, with the data which we have in there, now we have the means to actually go beyond the automation, go to the intelligent process. Let me do an example here. If the customer out there is, for example, experienced or would be receiving a higher than normal bill, then what would happen in the regular world is he would receive the bill at some point in time, he would probably call in, would complain about that one, would discuss why it even happened, and so forth. Now, in the today's world, what we can do is the system already knows that there will be a higher than usual bill because we know the past of this customer, of this particular customer, not just a group of customers, not just a general consumer, but this customer. So we can anticipate what is the threshold when the customer would be calling in, so we can actually anticipate that and we contact the consumer. We actually know how he typically behaves in these situations, and we can offer him the right way to deal with the fact. Or we can maybe even start an investigation if the system finds out this is unnatural. This should not have happened. So maybe there is something wrong in there, so we can investigate before it even reaches the consumer. So we can bring this intelligence into the processes, take advantage of the data, and actually take not only load off the utility by letting the system do what the system can do, but also improving the relationship with the consumer. You can take this also on the asset side by taking the information about the, for example, energy quantities which are running through a certain equipment, the real energy running through, not just the estimated part in there, but the real energy flow in there, and then determine what is the real lifetime expectation for this asset, and schedule maintenance or replacement not based on old plans or maybe expert knowledge which is in the heads of some experts out there, but really based on the real usage of the equipment, which can not only reduce the workload for the individual work group out there, but also reduce the cost by extending the usage periods of this requirement. So this is what we see, what digitalization of the processes really can do, taking it to the next level of intelligence in the enterprise.
Well, I tell you, it's quite clear to me, and I think to everybody at EUW, that customer centricity is what it's all about, and providing better service. But gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and insights, and I'd like to thank our viewers at EUW as well. Have a fantastic event.